Hi everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at some of my favorite fall and winter knit accessories that I have made throughout the years. I am doing this for a couple reasons. One, because I actually think it is the right time to do it. I have been designing a lot of accessories lately for the fall and winter, and it's just got me thinking of some of my go-to patterns that I love. And then also, my dad will be visiting me actually next week. So I am knitting this as kind of a special episode before the fact, just because I want to be able to take off during the time while my dad is here and visiting, and I don't want to have to worry about a podcast or missing an episode, so I thought it might be fun to do this now as something to kind of fill in between. So we're calling this a special episode. I think I'm going to be able to fit all of this in one episode. If not, if I have to break it into two, then we will figure that out later. So the format is going to be a little bit different than what I've done. Besides my podcast, if you've seen, sometimes I'll do my most and least worn knits of a certain season. But this, I really just kind of culminated on the things that I actually wear a lot and have worn throughout the years and have enjoyed making. I just thought that would be more appropriate just to show you all of the great things that I have worked on throughout the years. And so, also to change it up a little bit, I decided that I'm going to just have my laptop open. It was so many projects that it was just easier for me to go through my Ravelry project pages and talk about it that way instead of actually like writing down all my notes. And then I'm also going to go from oldest to newest. So I know I've talked a lot about some of my latest releases, like my Under the Ivy Cowl and Beanie. And I will just touch on those and just at the very end. So really, you're going to be seeing a lot of stuff that you probably haven't seen before, and maybe even some things that I haven't worn as much because they're a little bit older. And so I'm actually kind of looking forward to doing this. I always love these videos because it's fun to pull out some of your projects that are maybe a little bit more forgotten, a little bit older, because you realize how many of these you love and you've just maybe forgotten about because you've knit some newer pieces, but some of these are just really good staple pieces, and it's nice to bring them out and kind of add them back into the rotation. So why don't we go ahead and kick off? I have worn a black shirt so I can wear the accessories as I'm chatting about them. I just think it's fun to be able to, show what I made so you can see what it actually looks like on. I am still getting used to my hair. I'm hoping to not be messing with it too much, but the bangs are kind of doing their own thing. So we will just get right into it. So if you see me looking off here, it's because this is my laptop with my project page and all of the details about the pattern. And then over here, you probably can't see it too much, but I have put a tray table in here with some of my items, and then I've got a few down here. I tried to narrow it down to just kind of my go-to. It was really hard, especially with accessories, because if you're anything like me, I knit a lot of accessories because it's just fun to have options, and they're quick knits. It's a lot of instant gratification, these are like quick wins. So why don't we go ahead and start with the oldest of the bunch, which is this 2-color cotton cowl by Purl Soho. So I'll go ahead and put this guy on. If you have watched previous episodes, then you will probably recognize this pattern because I have knit it multiple times, and I have a blue and white one that I adore, which will come up soon. I will lean in close for you to see it. So this is, I believe it's still a free pattern by Purl Soho. And like I said, it's called the 2-color cotton cowl. It's recommended to be knit in sport weight, and they recommend US 6 or 4 millimeter and US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles. And so the larger needle is for the entire body, which is done in fisherman's rib. I think it's half fisherman's rib, actually. Maybe it's, hold on. Okay, no, I think it's actually full fisherman's rib. I think you are knitting one below and purling one below. I'll correct it if I'm wrong. But anyway, so the larger needle is for the body, and then the smaller needle is where you just knit stockinette and then you bind off in pattern and it does this little rolled hem. So this first one that I did, I used Miss Bab's Yowza, and I was feeling very holiday. So I had these two colors, this greenish color, which is called Blue Dasher, and then the red color, which is called Volcanic Eruption. And it was a risk. You know, I'd had these in my stash. I wasn't really sure what to do with them, so I decided to just knit it in this. Didn't love it. I guess I do wear it sometimes around the holidays still because it's so squishy and warm, and I think in the holidays you can get away with kind of like kooky, crazy. I just don't think, these are two pretty strong colorways. The red is definitely more variegated, and I would say that the green is more tonal, but like trying to show you right now, I hope this shows up better on screen than what I can see, but the red just really kind of takes over, and I feel like you just don't see the green very much, and I think it would have been smarter for me to do a neutral with one of the colors. But it was one of those things where I was just stash busting and I wanted to get rid of this really nice yarn that I had, and I only had like a little bit of each one. And it's DK weight, so it's technically a little bit larger than what the pattern recommends, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's just a cowl. Like, it doesn't really matter, just measure it. I just did it to the width that recommended, and let me pull this off so you can, okay, caught in my earring. Hoop earrings were a bad choice for today, I think. But you cast on the long edge, and so it's a lot of stitches that you have to cast on at first, and it feels slow. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this definitely, because of all the fisherman's rib, it feels like quite a slow, boring knit, but it's actually over relatively quickly because it's not very long. Like, it's wide, but it's not very long. And then you're done, and you finish it with stockinette just the way you started it. And so I think this is a fun knit to have on the side with something else, where if you want something where you just don't really need to think and you're okay with something a little more monotonous, this is a good one to do. I would recommend doing better contrast though. Now, you might like the combination. I mean, I still wear this. I wear this around the holidays and I think it works fine. But I later made a higher contrast one and I wear that way more. So, but it's a really great knit, and it's just one of those cowls that feels really like just hardy around you without feeling hot. I love a cowl like this that you can just double wrap around you and put your jacket on and just bundle and be really cozy. Especially on the really cold days, these really come in handy. It's kind of like the same idea as like one of those big shawls that you wrap around you, There's just something really nice about wrapping something around. So that is project number 1. I should probably not be numbering these because I think pretty soon I'm going to forget what number I am on. But that's the first one. So we'll go a little out of order, but just to kind of stay on theme, I will show you my second version, which I absolutely love. I wear this all the time. I really wanted to include that first one because it feels very fall and it is very festive. And like I said, I enjoy it for the holidays, but I really only wear it in that very specific time of year. Whereas this 2-color cowl, I wear all the time and I love it. I love this cowl so much. I just think it's the perfect color combination, and it's definitely a little bit smaller. So it's funny, the pattern calls for sport weight yarn in 2 colors. The first one I did in DK weight, so it was a little bigger than the pattern recommended. And then this version I did in fingering weight, so it's a little bit smaller. However, I love it. It's still quite dramatic, and it gives me all the layers that I want. Oh, it's so good. So I used Country Yarns Artistry fingering in the colors. So the white color is Matisse, and then the blue color was actually a one-of-a-kind colorway. And I really loved these two together because the blue is definitely more of like a tonal blue, and then the white has little specks of blue and green in it. So I just thought while it had contrast, it still had a little bit of blending in it, and I just love this. It's one of those where I actually don't know which one I prefer in terms of which side, I mean. So there's a right side and a wrong side. You've got your main color because that is the color that you do your top and bottom edges with, but you can have that color be dominant, or you can have the contrast color be dominant on the other side. And what I love about this is that you can have both sides showing. So you've got the front and the back as a contrast in and of itself. And I just think this is a really beautiful cowl. It's quite simple. It's kind of the same concept as brioche. It's fisherman's rib, and it sounds scarier than it is. You're basically just knitting one below. So because of that, you kind of have to knit 2 rows to make 1 row, and that's what makes it feel long, especially because you are casting on the widest edge. But it really, like, if it's something that you have for your TV knitting, it's gonna go by so fast. This was this was actually a really good lesson for me too on how to fix drop stitches in a complex pattern like fisherman's rib, which there is still one that I don't think I did a super great job on, but for the most part I had dropped like half a column without realizing it, and I was able to pick them up, and I feel like that was one of the moments where I felt like I had like leveled up as a knitter. So this is just, it's a really great pattern. Also, I think this is a really good gift knit, especially because the pattern is free, and I don't know, I think a lot of people would really enjoy an accessory like this. So I can't recommend this pattern enough. This is a great pattern. All right, on to the next one. Okay, back in order. So the next one that I'm going to share is called the Barley Hat. And this is actually from a book. It's from a book called Knitting from the North, which I should have brought. It's upstairs. I think it's just a collection of patterns that use Jamieson and Smith. Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift, actually. So I think the whole book uses that yarn. And so it's all fingering weight yarns in these different Nordic designs and patterns. And this one, I think this actually might be on the cover of the book. And this was actually a big reason why I bought the book. I just really loved this. I love bold geometric prints, and I love color, and I love high contrast. And so obviously this sort of project really speaks to me. And so let me go back to the pattern. So the pattern recommends fingering weight yarn, and it recommends using a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. And I believe that's for the whole thing, so you don't change size. And it's got a 2x2 rib cuff, or, brim, not cuff, brim. I'm thinking about garments. It's got a 2x2 rib brim, and then you just go right into the color work. I'll show off some of my floats there. So what's cool about this is that it's hard to tell with the yarns I used, but you are actually doing a gradient of blending one color to another. So this starts as a green, and you do a little bit of blending in the middle, and then it goes to blue. Like I said, unfortunately, the blue and green that I used were, unless you're like really looking at it, you really can't tell. So that is kind of lost on this, but I still don't mind because I still think it looks really pretty. And so the yarns I used, I ended up going with Knit Picks palette. And so the colors I used, this light gray, which is the main color, is Mist. The green is called Rainforest Heather, and then the blue is Marine Heather, and then the pom-pom is also Marine Heather, which is falling apart. That's not good. It's funny. This is a pom-pom that, I don't know, I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but this pom-pom actually started out a little bit bigger, but for whatever reason, just the way the yarn has slanted, I can't get it even. No, or, well, I mean, it's been years since I worked on this, but I couldn't get the ball even no matter what I did. So I would like cut one side and then it would be off, and then I'd cut the other side and then that would be off, and I kept cutting. Eventually I just stopped cutting. And I think part of it is that just you'd have to like scrunch it to get it back in its form. So the pom-pom's a little bit funny, but it's okay. But why don't I go ahead and put it on? I'm trying to find my beginning of round and I can't, which I guess is a good sign. There we go. There it is. All right. So let's go ahead and so one thing about having new bangs is that I don't really know what to do with them when I'm wearing a beanie. Okay, so this is what it looks like on. It's funny, at first I was really nervous about this because when I first knit this, I felt like the Knit Picks palette was a little bit itchy. But I have found in wearing this that as long as it's warm enough, or not warm enough, as long as it's cool enough outside and I'm craving something warm on my head, it's not itchy. So, I mean, moral of the story, don't wear a prickly wool beanie when it's hot out. I mean, I think that's wise advice. But yeah, I think this is a really cool beanie. The one thing I didn't love, which, I mean, I guess, you know, they wanted to, I think this maybe is just how they typically do the hats, and it probably isn't that big of a deal. But if I remember correctly, this pattern actually doesn't do any increasing at all. I think you just knit a tube, and when you're done, you just sew all the stitches together, and then you put a pom-pom on. And that is why you can see it's very bunched at the top, and I mean, I guess it's fine. I mean, it's a look, right? Like it's one way that you can go about it. I do kind of wish that maybe it had decreases instead though. So if I were to knit this again, I might actually modify the chart to add decreases, but honestly, I don't think I will knit this again. I'm still very happy with this. I think this is a very fun beanie to wear, and it's a really cool book. You should definitely check it out. It's got all sorts of different accessories and garments. And just be warned though, everything uses fingering weight yarn. So if you're okay with tackling like a Nordic sweater in fingering weight, you should, because there are some really beautiful patterns in there. And so it's a pretty cool book. So this is the Barley Hat, and the actual designer of the pattern is Hilary Grant, Orkney. That's in parentheses, so I don't know. Hilary Grant Orkney is the designer of this, and it is for the book Knitting from the North. All right, next up on our list is the Sitka Spruce hat by Tin Can Knits. This is a really cool beanie. So I actually think I have this pattern as an ebook of a few different patterns of theirs, but I believe that the Sitka Spruce pattern it comes with a beanie pattern, but you can also do it as a beret. And then I think that pattern also includes matching mittens. And so Tin Can Knits did this. They recommended using worsted weight yarn. They have a lot of different options, and they used US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles for the ribbing, and then US 8 or 5 millimeter needles for the body. And like I said, they call for worsted weight yarn. I ended up using, so I had yarn in my stash from back when I was a Knit Crate member, and one of their yarn lines was called Audine Wools, and this was their sleek base. And I used it in the colorway Unwind. Is this really bright green that I actually still have some left in my stash. It's one of those greens that's really fun, but it's not a green I would ever really think to use. But I don't know, I think with knit accessories, you can kind of go a little crazier with your colors, and they used a really bright green in their pattern example, and I loved it. So I'll go ahead and put it on instead of just holding it up for you. And yeah. So I think this is really cute. I think it's got a really cool motif. It's just a twisted stitch that they do to make this motif. And I think it's really beautiful. And it's a way to have kind of a simple design on a single color beanie. I knit it really quickly. I think this is another one that's great as a gift knit, so definitely recommend this one. All right, next up on the list, I've got a cabled headband. So this is really bringing it back from the vault. This is called Abundance, I believe, and it's by Brome Fields. And this is just a very simple knit flat cabled headband. It takes no time at all. You cast on here and then you just knit down and then you seam it together. Very simple. They recommend using jumbo yarn, and I think their recommended yarn is Cascade Yarn Spontaneous. And I used Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick it's like their stripe line, and it's in the color Hudson Bay. It's a very simple cabled knit. What I liked about this is that, so I like to go on walks a lot in the neighborhood, and sometimes when it's a little bit chilly out, but I have my hair up, I don't really like to wear a hat when I've got my hair up because it just doesn't really sit right, it doesn't feel right, and it might mess up my hair. I like the idea of a headband because I can put that on and still have my hair up in a ponytail, but it keeps my ears warm. My ears are pretty sensitive to wind, so I end up wearing this a lot when it's a little bit breezy out, but maybe not freezing cold. So it's just a very simple headband. I'm trying to, my bangs make it a little bit difficult. It's a big headband, I will say, but it's actually kind of nice when you want a little bit of extra coverage, but you still want to be able to wear your hair up. So this is just a very fun, very quick, very, very easy knit. I believe this is a free pattern. I think you can pay for it, but then there's also a free version like that's just in notes or with ads or something like that. So basically a free cabled knit headband. And I've had this for years and years and years. I should knit some in like, I have some really nice thick soft yarns that I could use now, but it's just been so long since I've knit this, I kind of forget about it until I have my hair up and I want to go outside, and then I'm like, oh yeah, let me grab my headband. I need to knit more headbands. All right, moving on. Okay, next up on my list is a capelet. This is called Pheodora, and this is by Lauren Peterson. So I actually test knit this maybe right before the pandemic, maybe during the pandemic, somewhere around there. And it's funny because this is actually a really insanely gorgeous colorwork design, but I don't wear it as much as I should. And it's really mostly just because I don't really know how to wear a capelet. I'll go ahead and put it on. I mean, it's really lovely. And when I do wear it, I just wear this around the house really when I am working. Like if I'm at my desk and I want something to keep my arms warm, but I don't really want to actually wear a sweater, I do find that this is a good thing to just kind of drape over me. It's nice, it keeps me warm without, it's like a low commitment sweater, you know? It gives you a little bit of extra warmth without having to warm your whole core. So I do think this is stunning. I think the color work is so gorgeous. And so she recommended using Miss Bab's Yowza. What I ended up going with was Malabrigo Caprino. And I used, let's see, the green is called Pines, and then the white is just natural. I'll let you see what that looks like up close. And so she recommends using the needles, a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and a US 6, which is a 4 millimeter. And obviously the smaller needle is for the ribbing, and the larger needle is for the body. And it doesn't use a ton of yarn. I think I used about 1,000 yards maybe total. And it's really beautiful. It's a good way to knit color work without having to do a whole garment, especially if you kind of want the look of a color work yoke, but you're not quite ready to knit yourself a sweater yet, I do think that this is a really good option. Again, I don't wear capelets a lot just because I don't really know how to wear them. Sorry, I have yarn fuzzies all over my nose. It's crazy. Anyway, but I do think this is a really great option for like at your desk. I really do grab for this when I'm sitting at my desk and I just kind of want to warm this area. If I'm just a little bit chilly, I think this kind of does the trick. And it's just really lovely. Yeah, like I said, this was a test knit. It was a lovely test knit, moved beautifully. I have to say this Malabrigo Caprino is stunning yarn. So it's got a little bit of cashmere in it. It's just a little bit, but it's enough to really feel quite luxurious, and it feels really nice to wear. I actually kind of wish that I had done this as a sweater. Like I think Caprino in a sweater would be really gorgeous. So this is another one of those yarns that's on my list as something I would like to knit up in a garment. So this is just a really nice, I think it's really beautiful. It's really romantic, and a lot of her patterns are very romantic. So definitely check out some of her stuff if you like the way this looks. Okay, next up, I actually think this one could probably use a good blocking. I've actually worn this one a lot, which is surprising. And then a lot of these a lot of these accessories I keep in my downstairs closet because these are what I grab before I go outside. And so some of them have gotten a little bunched up, and so apologies if this one looks a little bit creased. This guy, I kind of can't believe I knit this. This is the Upstate Scarf by Espace Tricot. So I'm gonna do it, there's a few ways that you could do this. I'm just gonna do it the old school way like this, just for the sake of getting it on. If you are familiar with Taylor Swift at all, then you will know when the red re-release came out. Obviously the red scarf was a whole thing, and in her shop, well, I think it was just the scarf, but in her shop, she was selling a red scarf with this, it's just like a broken rib kind of pattern. And Espace Tricot just kind of like reverse engineered it and put out a free pattern for a scarf. And it's funny because never in a million years would I want to knit a scarf again. And like everybody knits a scarf as like their beginner project, and then they're like, why did I do this? This is so long and so boring. I don't want to do this again. But I don't know, maybe I was just caught up in the craze. Maybe I was just like in the Taylor Swift era, but I just really wanted to knit this scarf. I just thought it was really beautiful. And the idea of just a really red, long, dramatic scarf that you could wrap around a bunch of times just sounded really nice. So I'm gonna actually, even though I said I was just gonna do it that way, I kind of wanna show you how nice it is to wrap around. And it looks really good on the black. But yeah, there was just something about a dramatic scarf with the tassels, just your very traditional scarf that you would wear like in the Northeast on a fall day, you know, in your cute coat. I don't know. Anyway, so yes, I got caught up in the craze and I knit this over one holiday. And so their pattern recommends using Aran weight yarn. And let's see, they used a US 8, which is a 5mm needle. And so their recommended yarn is Plymouth Yarn Homestead. I ended up using Blue Sky Fibers Woolstok Worsted in the colorway Red Rock, which I love. I love this color. I think it is so beautiful. Just especially when you want that really dramatic red in the deep of winter. I love a dramatic red in the deep of winter. So it's a great, if you are willing to do the work of a scarf, and it is a labor of love because it's basically ribbing all the way, but it moves quickly because it's, you know, it's not a very wide scarf, it's just long. So you're just knitting that long panel, but you're done before you know it. And then you do these fun little tassels, and then it's so beautiful. And what's funny, I love knitting cowls as my like neck accessory. I enjoy shawls too, but cowls are kind of my go-to. But I actually, in the deep of winter, especially when it's snowing, I grab for this a lot. It's warm, it's cozy, just that, again, that wrapping motion is just something really nice about it. So I love this pattern, definitely recommend grabbing it if you're willing to knit a scarf. And then before I change out of it, so I made a companion piece to go along with this. I'm sorry, I'm pulling my earring out of this scarf. These earrings were not the right ones to wear today. But anyway, so I knit this scarf and I just loved it so much. I loved the red and I still had enough yarn left over to where I was like, why don't I make a beanie? And I found yet another free pattern. So this is Purl Soho's classic ribbed hat. And this uses DK weight yarn. That's what it recommends using. And it recommends using a US 3, which is a 3.25 millimeter needle. And you're just doing ribbing all the way up until you get to the decreases. And it's got really cool crown decreases at the end. Obviously, I used worsted weight yarn, so it's a little bit denser, but I would rather a denser hat than a lighter hat. And so this is, now it's funny, in my last normal podcast episode, I talk about how I prefer wearing beanies that are a little bit closer to my head. I don't like the long thing. And so that is one thing that's funny. While I do grab for this scarf all the time, I don't actually wear this beanie very much because from the side, I feel like I look like a gnome. Now, this is nothing against people who wear this because I see people who wear these and I'm like, man, they're cool. But then I put it on me and I'm like, I look like a garden gnome. I should be sitting out in my front yard just with like a shovel or something. So it's a really cool hat, but it is not a hat that I wear as much, just for my personal preferences. So, but I think it's fun. There's something about red accessories in the winter, just a solid red. And I like this red because it's got a little bit of blue in it. It's not like your shocking fire hydrant red. And for me in particular, I think reds that are a little bit on the cooler side work better. And so I really enjoy this yarn. Same yarn, Blue Sky Fibers, Woolstok worsted in the colorway Red Rock. So these are two great options that are both free, which is always great. Okay, so my next one, this one is actually kind of a funny story. This ended up being a hat for me because it didn't work out for my husband, Thomas. Thomas really wanted a beanie and he's got a few beanies that he loves and he was like, well, it'd be cool if I had a knit beanie that you made. And so I had him pick out a pattern and he ended up picking out a free pattern. This is called the Citrus Hat by Laura Treadway and it is a free pattern on Ravelry. So it recommends worsted weight yarn, but it's also interesting. It gives you lots of different gauge options if you want to use different yarn, just depending. And you use a US 4 or 3.5 millimeters needles for the brim, and then you go up to US 6 or 4 millimeters for the body. And then it's just got some fun little decreases, and I like that it's called a citrus hat because you do kind of look like some sort of like orange peel or something. So I ended up using another Knit Crate stash yarn for this. Thomas picked out the color. He loves these kind of blue and blue greens. It is Vidalana Celestial in the colorway Callisto. And going off of the beanies that he likes, I knit this version for him. And I don't know, he didn't love it. He wished it was a little bit looser. So I ended up making him another one. I've made him a few other beanies since then, but this one ended up working out well for me. So I'll go ahead and put it on. I can't see. Yeah, and you know, as you know about me, I like a beanie that fits close to my head. So this is definitely a beanie I'm more comfortable wearing. And yeah, you can see it fits me really well. So it was definitely a bit snug on him. So I went up, made him a larger size, worked out better. And then I ended up getting a hat for myself. I don't wear this one a ton, not for any particular reason, except that I've been knitting a lot of beanies for myself lately. And this one I think because this was originally meant for Thomas, this is not a beanie that I go to a lot, but when I do grab for it, I really enjoy it. This yarn is actually quite nice, and I really like the color, so I'll probably wear this a little bit more. I need to find a way to rotate my beanies, just maybe depending on my outfit or my mood. Okay, next up, this is actually my first design that I released myself. So I became a blue sky maker a couple of years ago, and part of that meant that they would send me yarn for particular projects, and then I could design a pattern and publish it, and they would help promote it, and you know, I would use their yarn in the pattern. You can use whatever yarn you want, but obviously this is the yarn that I used and recommend for it. So this is the Frost and Flurry Shawl, which I will go ahead and put on now. Wow. There are a few different ways that you can wear this, just depending on if you want it a little bit more subdued, where you just have these little flurry motifs and then the big blizzard portion. Or you can have it to where you're really highlighting the snowflake, which is done in mosaic that's on the edges. So this is a triangle shawl. And I'll show you again, just so you can see it. It helps to kind of see the wingspan with this one. So it's an asymmetrical triangle shawl, which is part of why you can wear it a few different ways. And then you can also, I actually find that I wear it a lot, just like this, around the house, just because it's really cozy. It's basically like wearing a blanket, which is really fun. And I like that it's a little bit different depending on where you look at it. So this uses Blue Sky Fibers Baby Alpaca. It's the Melange yarn, and that's the blue one, and it's in the colorway Blue Cheese, which is just so great. And then the white is brushed Suri, and it's incredible. The halo on it is nuts, and the colorway is whipped cream. I'm going to, if you look, you can see the very subtle texture that's in there. I love how subtle this texture is because you're using the brushed Suri, which has such a big halo on it. And then I just thought it looked really beautiful against this alpaca, because you get these, you get all of these little bumps that are just like fuzzy little flurries. And this is a really fun knit. So you do have some purling you have to do, because obviously this is knit flat and you're mostly achieving a stockinette fabric, but there are bits of purls in here. So there is a little bit, you're not purling all the time. You're knitting a lot, and then you do have to purl sometimes. But yeah, this was my first design. I was knitting this when it was snowing, and I was so inspired by it, and that's just where I wanted to take it. I wanted to follow my inspiration. I love to design based on nature and based on things I'm inspired by in the season I'm in. And that was my inspiration for this shawl. And this is another shawl that I grab for when it's really cold. I wear it around the house, or I will bundle it around myself, around my neck, and wear it more like a scarf and go out if it's just like really, really cold out. Okay, next up is another one by me. So this is around the time that I started to just get really inspired, and I was knitting accessories like crazy and coming up with designs. Just like I said, I am so inspired by nature. And at the time where I designed this, which is my Wildflower Bloom Cowl, it was springtime. Maybe it was a little bit more like summer. It was spring, summer, and our garden was in full bloom, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And while I was out, I was able to pick up this yarn, which is Lana Grossa Cashmere Fine in the colors. So the blue is, okay, so I think they're just numbers instead of color names. So I think the blue is 462 and the white is 329. I fell in love with the blue right away, and I knew I needed to do something really dramatic with it. So put this on. Because this is a floral cowl, I don't know, I liked the idea of this one being a little bit more delicate. So I didn't do a big bulky cowl. I wanted this to be a little bit more demure, you know, a little bit smaller. Now that being said, you could make yours a little bit wider if you wanted, especially depending on the yarn you use. It was interesting, this yarn, so let me look this up because this yarn is technically a sport weight yarn, but I definitely got fingering weight gauge on this just because it's a very springy yarn. It's very stretchy and it kind of bounces back, but it also gives such a beautiful soft fabric. So I love how this knit up for the flowers because I wanted flowers that actually felt like flowers and not like blocky geometric shapes. And so I thought that this worked really well in more of an organic sense. And I love the blue with the white. My test knitters did really cool options. There were some that did like multicolored. I know somebody did spin cycle for the flowers, and then like I think like black or white for the main color. It was really cool to see it in like the multicolor options, and people did a lot of really, really cool colors. I ended up making socks in this pattern too, just because I was so in love with this pattern at the time. But this is a cowl I go for a lot too. When I want something that I can throw on quickly, I wear this a lot in transitional months. So I wear this a lot in the fall and the spring, and it's so soft. I love it so much. And plus it's just, I love the floral motif on here. Okay, next up, I'm sorry, I probably should have broken this up in a different way. But as I said, my knitting mojo continued for accessory designs, and my next blue sky maker project for the year was my Misty Pines beanie, which this is actually one of the designs I'm really proud of, just because I just think this is a really fun design and I love wearing this. So this is very much, okay, let's fix the bangs. Okay, so this is very much me in my Pacific Northwest element, being fully inspired by the mist on the trees. So my husband and I like to go out hiking, and nothing crazy, but like we love to go out to the mountains out here, and we'll just pick a little area that's quiet and we'll just go hiking. And my favorite thing on these cool cloudy days is when you can see the mist and the clouds kind of banking over some of the trees, but not all of them. And you can sort of see some of the trees fading into the distance. I love that. I love that so much. And my husband took this photo that so inspired me. So again, like I said, my husband takes all of my pattern photos, but he, just for fun as a hobby, he likes to do landscape photography and he's incredible at it. And that's part of the fun of when we go out hiking. We'll find a place, and if it's really nice, he'll take some photos too. And so he took this really beautiful photo, and it had just been on my mind forever. And when I set myself up to do this second pattern for Blue Sky, I had picked out the Woolstok worsted bundle, and it was their neutral bundle. And I knew I wanted to do a fall hat, but I hadn't figured out what yet. And it was just one of those things where the worlds collided, and I realized this has to be that. And then I came up with the name Misty Pines, which I also think is really fun. And I ended up making two versions. So there is the low contrast, which is this, where it's meant to kind of, each panel fades. But then there is also a high contrast version, which, interestingly enough, this was kind of my brainchild. This was where I always saw it in my head, but the high contrast has by far been the more popular knit, which I find that so funny. I mean, I love them both. Obviously, I made both, but I wear this all the time. All the time. I love this beanie so much. Anytime it's moody or misty outside, this is what I go for. Like, I will forget all the other hats and I will wear this because it just, this is my favorite beanie. Maybe I'm biased. I probably am, but I love this beanie. So much so, let me not take this off yet, so much so that I made matching mitts. So there are also fingerless mitts that you can do in high contrast or low contrast. And I'm gonna not show these too closely because I have worn these mitts so much that they're pilling a bit. So they need a good depilling, which I should probably go do after this. But these are my Misty Pines mitts. So I actually like having a lot of room in the fingers so that you're not like feeling like your circulation is getting cut off. So I made them a little bit loose, but you can also do decreases if you want a tighter feeling. But I love these, and as you can see, I wear them a lot because I still want to be able to use my phone, but I need to keep my hands warm. And so in the winter months, like I drive in these all the time. I go out in these. This is my whole outfit. So, you know, it's my favorite. Yeah. All right. I ended up getting through that a little bit quicker than I expected. There are a few other things that I debated showing, but I just don't wear them as much as I would hope, so I don't think they really qualify in this video. I really want to be showing things that I am wearing a decent amount. Even the ones where I said I don't wear it often, I'm still wearing it some, just maybe not as much as some of these other items. And so because I hinted at it at the beginning, I will just end with my latest accessory knits, just because it feels very relevant right now. It's my most recent knit, it's my most recent pattern, and that is my Under the Ivy cowl and matching beanie. All right, so we've got the full effect right now. So this is my Under the Ivy cowl and my matching beanie. And this was one of my maker projects for this year as a blue sky maker. And this uses Woolstok Light in the colors Wild Thyme, which is the green, and Driftwood, which is the cream color. And so you can see this is a Mobius cowl that has a little bit of a twist. So it's a tube cowl. It's got a little bit of a twist, which is why it's called a Mobius cowl. And that just gives you a little bit of texture, so it's not just a straight tube. And then the beanie actually holds that Woolstok Light double to make a DK weight yarn, or a DK weight gauge. And then I also wanted a version where I was just holding it single, and I really wanted to play with spin cycle. So as I take all of that off. All right, so we'll end with my last one, which is the second version of my Under the Ivy beanie, which is very autumnal. So it uses, this main color is Moondrake Moonspun in the color Dark Spruce. And then the contrast color is Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool and the colorway Rusted Rainbow. Like I said, I had the kind of very PNW version, but then I just really wanted an autumnal version because we're going into fall now, and I just was feeling very on theme with that. And I think this really worked out well for that. So I just think this is a really great second option. And that way you've got a sport weight option as well as a DK weight option. So that's basically my Under the Ivy set. So the cowl is one pattern, and then the beanie is another pattern with a DK weight option as well as a sport weight option. And like I said, this actually just came out. So the cowl came out a couple of weeks ago, and then the beanie just came out recently. So these are still very fresh in my mind, and because of that, I do know I will be wearing these a lot this season. So I felt like it qualified to show them in the video. I promise I'm not trying to just promote myself. I'm just being honest about the items that I am wearing a lot for my fall knits and accessories. All right, well, that actually concludes all of my fall accessory knits, fall and winter, really. I went through that quicker than I expected to, but I mean, I guess that's a good thing about accessories, is that it actually takes a lot less time to go over than an actual garment, just like it takes a lot less time to knit it than a garment. So I think it's really great to work on accessories in these months where especially with the holidays as things get really busy, an accessory just feels like a much quicker win. You can knit something up and you can get it done in just a few days and feel like you really accomplished something. And then they also work really great as gift knits, which who doesn't love to gift an accessory that really only took like 4 hours to knit? I much prefer that over knitting somebody a sweater or a all over cabled cardigan. But thank you so much for watching if you stuck around till the end. And if you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.